Thank you so much for joining us today. I gotta say, I think Hijack might actually be my new favourite show. I don't know about you guys, but I guess there might be a few fans out there who have either binged it like I did. Oh yes, we've got a round of applause already. Isn't it brilliant? Okay, well let's get our glittering cast of creatives out. First up, Idris Elba. Idris plays Sam Nelson and he's executive producer. This is George Kay, writer and executive producer. Here we have Archie Panjabi, who plays Zahra Gahfoor, Max Beasley, who plays Daniel Farrell, and then we have Jim Field Smith, director and executive producer.
This came as just an idea from George, and then became, you know, the story beats and then the scripts. But I knew really much very early in the journey when I sat with George and talked about what we were trying to achieve and what, you know, the story and the perspective of this story. For me, as a producer and a talent, I was sort of interested in doing something that was going to really, you know, hit the mark in television. I love television, love making television, have do for years. I play in the film space as well, and I think the sort of merger between film and what is film and what is television has gotten smaller, that sort of line, and working with George was just like, was a joy. I was a fan of his work and wanted to make that happen.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Nelson has certainly stayed with me. I gotta say, like, you know, that even that opening shot, it's almost the way you're talking about the crossover between TV and film. It is filmic. I've never seen a travelator look so sexy in my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the lens flare and the sun, and I love that motif that we see throughout, which is kind of, you know, you being backlit and looking angelic and heroic, which actually brings me really, I guess, to the cinematography. And Jim, at the end, director Jim.
I thought you were going to say it brings you to Max Beasley.
Oh, from one angel to another. But it is exquisite.
Thank you.
I mean, how it's shot. Can you tell us a little bit about how you settled on shooting style?
Well, obviously, we spent most of our time trying to make Idris look presentable. The biggest thing for us, I suppose, was we've got a show that's set almost exclusively inside of an aeroplane. There's two problems with that. One is to make it engaging dramatically and not feel dull and flat. And the other thing is to make it feel like you are actually in an aeroplane that's moving through the sky. So it was sort of definitely very, very challenging. We had a very talented team that figured out how to solve both of those issues. And I sort of heaped problem on top of problem by saying, you know, we didn't really want to break this plane apart. We wanted to move around the plane and never break through the skin of it. And I didn't want the thing you sometimes see on screen where everything gets scaled up to make it easier. The plane you see in the show is a millimeter for millimeter replication of an airliner. So we sort of made it as hard for ourselves as we possibly could, and hope that translates on screen into something that feels really convincing. But at the same time, yeah, tried to make it look as engaging and to pull you into the drama as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we didn't break the plane apart and make, you know, this is a real plane just in a studio, and the confinement of that just really applied to the drama. Even for the crew, you know, figuring out how we're going to do this top shot without being able to take the roof off was about trying to figure out how to do that. And you know, it all sort of led into the claustrophobia of it. So the crew, the actors, you know, everyone was sort of tight. And it was almost like watching a documentary being made while being in the documentary, you know.
It meant we could keep going more. You know, it meant that we could stay in the moment and let the scenes play out more. You know, when you're dealing with a hijacking, it's about people reacting and trying to figure out live, you know, how to get through the next second, how to get through the next minute. And so we were able to bring some of that into the actual making of it. That, again, that was, as Idris says, that was all about wanting to feel engaged in the drama of it and not feel like it was artifice or that it was we were sort of sitting back and watching it from afar. I wanted to feel like you're in that hijack.
Yeah, which you certainly do. I mean, you feel it. It's a ride, you know what I mean? George, I want to ask you. George is the writer of the project. How did it come about? I mean, what was the genesis of the idea?
I was on a train, actually. I was on the Eurostar. I was doing a lot of work in France, and we were in the Eurostar tunnel, and the train stopped for quite abruptly. And even though I knew everything was all right, it flashed through my mind, what if there's something going on this train? And I looked around me at the people, the kind of businessman eating his lunch and the squabbling family, and I thought, how would we cope as a group of people if this was a serious incident? Would the tough-looking guy really be tough? Would the kind of the weedy guy really rise up and actually cover himself in glory and manage to stand up to people? Who are these people really? When you look past them as you get past your prejudice of those people and how they look and how they're acting, and it kind of put me in mind of Blitz spirit and like when the chips are down, how do the British or an international community cope when suddenly thrust into kind of extremes? And then the thought of a plane was much more visual. You know, we could really open it up.
High stakes.
High stakes, also like a moving society. You know, we got class system on a plane. The hijacking is a great leveler for all of these people, and so they really get tested, no matter what their rank, no matter what their class seat they're sitting in on the plane. So it felt like a good setting to take it to a plane.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that I'm the weedy guy?
Yeah.
So what's really going on here? I didn't see that.
Yeah. On a serious point, what was great was that when Idris came on board to play Sam, we all have our understanding of Idris as an actor and his and it's great to give him a role that I think that's this kind of he doesn't have the skills of a Royal Marine or an SAS soldier or stuff. He's really as a character, but he looks like he might.
Life.
He looks like he might, right? So yeah. So it's quite fun to play with what the hijackers think of Sam Nelson and what Sam Nelson thinks they think of Sam Nelson and all that stuff. So it's got loads of fun layers to exploit.
Yeah. Now, Archie and Max, together, you're part of the ground force. What's happening on the ground?
So Zara's character first learns about the hijacking and then gets together all the authorities and starts a big investigation. Those were stressful scenes, though. We all had to stay in one position. We couldn't move because of the number of people in the room. We were watching a monitor with like a dot, which was the aircraft, and really like intense scenes.
So when the script first landed with you, did you know immediately, yes, I want to play Zara?
Well, when I first read it, I think I was sent 3, and I couldn't put it down. And then by the end of the 3rd one, I wanted to know if my character had successfully saved the passengers. So I phoned up my agent. I said, I need to read 4 to 7. And she said, so selfish of me. She said, do you not want to do it? I said, no, I'd love to do it. I just need to know what happens to the passengers. And that's when I thought, this is a brilliant script. It's really thrilling. It's going to have audiences at the edge of their seat. So, and Idris was in it, of course. And Max and Jim and...
Max, I mean, for you, when you first read the script, did you think, OK, I'm in, this is brilliant?
Well, interestingly enough, Idris was very kind enough to suggest me for the role to the producers, which was lovely. And then when I got the scripts, first thing I always look at is who's written it, because I write myself and I like good writing. And I saw it was George, and then Jim as a director, and I'd seen Criminal. And what I loved about that show was it was compelling. It was in such small, confined spaces, yet there was so much going on within the stillness, if that makes sense. And I thought it was really clever television that they both created. And so immediately I was like, great, let's go. And also I wanted to work with Idris. I didn't realise that he'd be 30,000 feet up in the air and I'd be running around on the ground trying to find out what was going on, you know. But
did you ever see each other?
No, and not even in the 6-month shooting.
Not once.
Yeah. So, but of course, after reading it, the first couple of episodes, I think I read 3, there's so many wonderful nuances for me to play as both a professional policeman, but also from a personal point of view, being involved in Sam's ex-wife, played by Christine Adams, and we get very subtle reminders of that, on the picture frame. There's pictures of Sam with the family, and he's obviously handsome, and he's got a vibe about him, and so I think that policemen, while they're so tenacious and professional and very good at their jobs, their personal lives are very discombobulated, if you like. So there was something interesting there for me to get hold of, and then of course my Archie's character is another ex-lover of this rogue. Somehow, I think, were we lovers?
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm itching to know the backstory, because the relationship between you two, I mean, that dynamic just leaps off the screen, doesn't it? I mean, something really bad went down.
Well, we had something went down. I'm not quite sure what it was, Kate. But
I am.
Okay. But it's excellent because we very delicately and subtly work through Christine's messages from Idris's character Sam, and then my past relationship with Archie, who's in counter-terrorism. We can then start formulating something we don't think really is going on, but as the dominoes fall, then we realise we're into a very serious situation quite quickly in the show as well, which is good because it grabs you quite quickly, and it's high octane stuff. It's really, a great thriller and a great drama, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Part of the, without being too highfalutin about it, part of the fun of it is about information and about who knows what.
Yeah.
And the genius of Sam's character is that he's trying to get information to the ground without being caught doing that by the hijackers. Meanwhile, because of the methods that he's using, which are maybe a little bit unconventional, the characters on the ground are having to decipher this and figure out, is it hijacked or is it not? And so we sort of deliberately wanted to keep everyone separate and keep everyone guessing the whole time.
Wow. Well, those are a few questions from me, but the people that we're really interested to hear questions from today is everyone out here and also everyone online who has joined us virtually. So I'll start by taking a question from the floor in the room here. If anyone's got a question, just pop your hand up and we'll get a mic to you before you ask it.
A question for Idris. Obviously, this is an action thriller, so sort of talk us through, please, if it's okay, the sort of fight sequences or action sequences, and sort of how did it affect you? Did you get battered and bruised, or were there any injuries or anything like that?
So I guess one of the things that I guess was by design is that we didn't take this plane apart and made it easier for us to shoot. We designed all the action sequences with what we've got. Okay, Sam does a lot of sneaking around the plane. Me sneaking on a plane is like, bro, what are you doing? We can see you. So it meant that I had to either get lower or we had to figure out another way. And that was actually really, again, add to the sort of drama and the reality of this thing. The fight sequences were certainly hard to shoot. They were choreographed within the space. If we hurt ourselves, we just took a breather and carried on. Because not to say that we didn't care, but it's just that we didn't try and change the choreography not to hurt ourselves. Because in this instance, the fight sequences are based on what would we do rather than this is a fight sequence. We've all been on a plane, we've all sat in a chair and looked over and seen that person from this perspective. We've all looked down the aisle and looked behind us, and that's what Jim and the team really designed well and implemented into the action sequences,
Thank you. I'm going to take a question now from the journalists that have joined us virtually. So this is a question to Archie and Max, and this is from Barbara Munker, who's at DPA in Germany. You're part of the team on the ground and the personal backstory. How did you experience the tension building on the plane while figuring out a solution on the ground?
I guess the pressure just builds so much that the tension in that room just escalates to a point where it becomes unbearable. In terms of us...
Yes, carry on.
I remember when we first met, we were like, well, what's our chemistry? What's our backstory? What's our history? And I think we both had two different stories, didn't we? Both decided each of us had chucked each other, and then you pointed to the script,
I
didn't
said
you?
you're the dominant. You broke my heart. maybe.
I mean, I think it's only George that can settle this.
But
Yeah, sorry,
Really?
sorry,
George,
Max.
what's the backstory?
was I an animal? Was that, I don't know. Anything.
I think Zahra is strong and managed to kind of see that maybe Daniel's not the right partner, and they broke up, but they did have a relationship for sure. Yeah.
And maybe Sam Nelson was more appropriate, you think?
But in answer to that lady's question, just
That's a whole new series.
Thank you so much.
I love trying.
No. In answer to the question, when we were working on the ground, obviously, as we get more information, the stakes are everything's heightened, and then we're out on the road. Then the counter-terrorism units are involved, armed response units are involved, and then it really does. You just play the pages, man. You just play the script, and that's all you need to do, and it grows quite beautifully, throughout the 7 hours of the show. I think so. I think that's.
There's a really nice moment, though, isn't there? There's a really nice moment when I'm driving the car and you ask me all these questions about your ex, and I have a go at you, and we argue, and at the end she just says, "It's okay, I get it."
Yeah.
And I think from then onwards we just work together.
Because we're both very good at our jobs, which is important, and ultimately we do kind of really help the situation. I think,
I think you're all quite exceptional at your jobs.
Sorry, I meant as the characters. I wasn't being an egomaniac. I meant we're both very good counter-terrorist policemen. Okay, so.
Oh, funny. There's a question here, and this is to Jim and George. It's from the States. It's from Cherry the Geek TV. Now, he was wondering if you could talk about the real-time element of the show. In the past, this type of story was told as a 2-hour movie. With this format, you're telling the story of the 7-hour flight over the course of 7 hours, and it works really well. Talk about the development of the story and the challenges and maybe unexpected surprises of doing this story in real time.
What I realised writing was that in a hijacking situation, it's not immediately life or death. It's not like you're just about to be pushed off the edge of a cliff or something. For Idris's character Sam, he had to contend with a situation that is constantly about to be life or death. So there's time and tension is suspended because until you know what those hijackers want, where they're taking the plane, what they intend to do, these are all unknowable things at the start of our story. And so we have a kind of, we've got a tension inbuilt. And there's no point breaking that. From a writing perspective, there's no point breaking that tension. You want to unfold the mystery really carefully and slowly because you should have people's breath held in their chests at that point. So the tension's going to be there throughout because you're edging all more incrementally towards a more intense situation the whole time.
And at which point did you decide, right, we're going to do this real time?
I was looking at the flight distances and the length of TV series, and they were very similar. And actually, then the thought just cropped up: well, hang on, why don't we just play it? Why don't we just run it for real? Because we've all been on what would feel like interminable plane journeys, but it would not feel interminable, or it would be suddenly a very short, intense, magnified experience if you were under the hijacking. So. It just felt right. There's the length of a show seems to be the length of a flight. So
one of the bits of research we were doing early on, I was listening to this testimony from a hijack survivor, and she said this thing that really, really stuck with me the whole way through the show, which was that she had been in a hijack situation, and she said that during a hijack, time ceases to exist, and all you're left with is decisions. And that I sort of had that in my head the whole time because it is real time. It's potentially more real time for the people on the ground than it is for the people on the plane. As Georgia said, for the people on the plane, you're sort of suspended. I mean, you're literally suspended, but you're sort of in suspension, and you're just trying to figure out how to sort of live through to the next moment. For the people on the ground, they're scrambling for answers. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and of course, this plane is heading essentially towards them. In terms of the second part of the question, the sort of some of the challenges of making it actually sort of perversely became, I think, some of the benefits of the show. So the problem with making a real-time drama is you are wedded to every single decision that you make in production throughout. We weren't able to do the convenient thing of jumping ahead in time or sort of swerving around something. We had to just take everything head on, and I think hopefully that's to the benefit of the show. And the downsides are that you can't avoid anything. If you've got a real-time storyline, you've got scripts that are written to a real-time storyline, you can't skip things.
And there's very little fixing in the edit.
There's very little, you know, but the good thing was that to bring it back to the original point, the material on the plane we found could actually expand, because actually once you're in those scenes on the plane, we hopefully successfully went for it. Like, I really wanted to feel the tension of moments that in any other situation would be completely inconsequential, feeling like the most important thing ever. Like, you know, Sam's character waiting for someone to move slightly so that they're not in his eye line anymore so he can go this way. You know, I wanted those moments to feel like they lasted forever almost, you know, and conversely I wanted the stuff on the ground to feel like relentless. So
Also, we didn't want to do any flashbacks or give the audience any irony or any knowledge that Sam and the other characters on board didn't have. Everything has to be earned for the people on the ground and for the people on the plane. The TV's full of shows that are mixing timelines and flashing back and giving audience better knowledge than some of the characters in the show. So it felt fresh to try something just linear, everyone learning at the same time.
Just quickly, as an actor, though, it felt like I was flying to Mars. Am I still on this flight? It's like six months later, I'm still on the flight. Or 3 seasons of a show. I'm like, are we still here? What's going on?
In the same outfit. How many
Ironically, the
versions of that
same
costume?
shirt I'm wearing now.
Did you? Was it like kind of Jeff Goldblum in The Fly? Did you have like literally 12 hanging up in your dressing room?
Yeah, and they were all very different stages. Oh, this one over here with all this blood on. I know where that is. I'll wear that again. Oh, man.
Brilliant. Right, we'll take another question from the floor. Excellent.
Idris, serious question here. This sees you do a more multi-dimensional role, but in terms of being an actor and getting the variety of roles, is it a blessing or a curse to be a good-looking man?
I'm getting a lot of love today. Wow, thank you very much.
Max, you can answer that as well if you like.
Oh, wow. Look, I'm sure it's all subjective. I'm not sure I'm not good looking to everyone, but there is something interesting about what he said earlier. George talking about, you know, the weedy man versus the strong man, and, you know, my size and shape, and, you know, all my life sort of, oh, you're a big lad, you know, and I've taken on roles that sort of feed into that a little bit. And in this particular time, I was really interested in playing against that. You know, even though Sam is what he isn't always the sort of hero in that sense. You know, it's more cerebral. He's quite vulnerable in the sense that he's got lots going on internally with his family. And I really was interested in that, you know. So it played against type, if you like. Some camera angles are not sexy, man. Especially on a plane, let me tell you. You know, Jim's got the camera right up my nozzle. I'm like, are you sure that's the angle, bro? Can I just shift to the light? He's like, no, this is perfect.
I'm going to take another question from our journalists virtually. This is a question from Nando Rona at Deadline in Germany. This is to Idris, Archie and Max. How do you think you might personally react in a situation like the series because of the show? So since you've made it, how might you react on a plane that had been hijacked? Do you know?
Well, look, you know, I would shut up and mind my own business.
Really?
No. But I wouldn't be Sam, for sure. I just wouldn't have thought out that clearly. But if I had an opportunity to speak to a hijacker and I got eye contact and I thought for a second that person would listen to me, I would go for that and be like, dude, this is very stupid. Or, dude, can you get me a drink, please? Just quickly get me a drink. I don't think I'd be the hero guy that's trying to, you know, outsmart the hijackers. I doubt that very much. But I certainly would want to help the staff and say, look, you know, if you need a volunteer to help you do something, I'm in, 100%.
And you've got a bit of intel now. I mean, you've learned a lot making this series.
No, I know how to fly now, and I know how to fly a plane, so, yeah.
How about you, Archie?
I don't know what I would do. I guess it would depend on the hijackers, what they were like. I'd like to think I'd be able to communicate with them and talk with them and use some of Zara's skills. But I don't know, that's a really interesting question. It would depend on the people.
Max?
I remember years ago I got robbed in Ladbroke Grove at gunpoint, and I remember thinking, if that ever happens, I'll go to work and I'll take care of business. And I completely froze. I was in a chair with a gun at the back of my head, and even if I had a weapon, I would have said, "Brother, I've got a gun here, man. Do you want to?" I was terrified, so I've got no idea. I don't no idea what you know.
Jim, George, I mean, it feels like unfair to leave you out, but...
I would run and hide in the toilet. I would not step up at all, I don't think.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for this really exceptional piece of work. It is, an exhilarating ride. I will, just to balance things out, compliment you all on your looks and say you're all beautiful, exceptionally handsome.
And very good at our jobs.
But it is a very beautiful panel. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for everyone online.
Thank you.